Hello, virtual learners. Today's story is called Pumpkin Town. This story was written by Katie McKay and it was illustrated by Pablo Bernasconi. Remember, as we read a story, we're going to think about who is in the story, where the story happened, and what happened in the story. Be ready when the story is over to do your own retell. Pumpkin Town. Pumpkin Town. Jose and his family grew pumpkins. That growing began with tiny seeds, which were followed by long vines, and those vines grew every which way. The pumpkins grew every which way too, from small to fat to tall. The Jack-Be Littles could be dropped into pockets. The Happy Jacks were bigger. A strong enough boy could carry just one. The Big Moons were bigger still, too large for 5 boys to roll. Come fall, Jose and his family would gather the pumpkins and collect the vines. Then 2 trucks took the fruit to faraway cities. Some were hollowed and carved, and some were saved for pies. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I have a connection. I was driving down the road the other day, and there was right in front of me a great big semi-truck, and I was trying to decide what was in the back. It was something really big and orange, and then as I passed that semi-truck on the highway, I realized that there were pumpkins in the back. So the connection to this story, I realized, whoa, I lost a page of my book. I realized I had a time when I saw a truck just like the truck in Jose's family that were bringing the pumpkins to faraway cities. Okay, back to the story. But before the trucks took the pumpkins, Jose and his family saved a few. They needed the seeds. When it came to saving pumpkins, Jose's father always said, "Save only the best and sell the rest." So Jose and his brothers hollowed the best pumpkins and saved only the biggest, brightest seeds. See how they sorted them? You can see which ones they saved and which ones they didn't. They took the duller, smaller seeds to the edge of the field overlooking the town and tossed them. But one gusty October day, when Jose and his brothers took the lesser seeds to the edge of the field and flung them, the wind caught those seeds and carried them, and didn't let them loose until they fell like rain on the distant town. The seeds slipped into straw roofs and settled into flower pots and sprinkled gardens, and that seemed to be the end of it. Well, what do you think? Can you make any predictions? A prediction is a smart guess about what might happen to all of these seeds that flew on this distant town. Now let's check your prediction. But the next spring, rain awoke those small seeds, and plants began. More rain fell, and vines grew every which way. They wrapped around chimneys and through the corn. At first, the townspeople liked the vines, for they were lovely and delicate. But then the vines began to climb up and down and around, growing leafy and thick. They snaked green and silent through one window, and then out another. So what do you think? Do these townspeople look like they really like these vines as much anymore? The illustration shows me not so much. I don't think I would like it if I had giant vines growing in one window and out another one at my house. Then fruit began. It grew and grew and grew every which way. Soon the townspeople were stepping over pumpkins and around pumpkins and under pumpkins. It was hard to even walk a block. Rooftops sagged under the weight of big moons. Fences fell, and when the wind blew, one had to dodge Happy Jacks and Jack-Be Littles falling from trees. "Nothing is worse than pumpkins," groaned the townspeople. Again, the illustrations show us the townspeople are not very happy. Meanwhile, up on their mountainside, Jose and his family cut and stacked their pumpkins, saving only the best, and when they were done, they stepped back and said, "Nothing is better than pumpkins." But when Jose and his family looked down at the town, it looked odd. It seemed so green and orange. That's not like what they saw before, right? It's changing. And we know why it's changing, but Jose and his family don't yet. And there we go. This part fell out of the middle of my book. Soon their fieldwork was done, and because Jose and his brothers were curious, they walked to town the next day. And where they saw there more vines and pumpkins, they saw more than they'd ever imagined. They remembered the gusty, dusty day that they'd scattered the seeds. "It's our fault," whispered Jose. "We must do something," whispered his brothers. "We rest for now," whispered Jose. Oh, now look at their faces. Yeah, they're not upset, but you can tell they look kind of worried. I would maybe even say that they have a guilty look on their face. But that night, Jose and his brothers cut and stacked the pumpkins and vines. They worked as quietly as they could, but some townspeople still sneaked peeks. They marveled at how well the brothers worked. The brothers climbed up poles and twined through trees and snaked silently through one window and out another, gathering and stacking pumpkins and vines. When the townspeople awoke, they discovered a mountain of pumpkins and a hill of vines and a mound of tired brothers. Those are their feet, can you see? Oh. While the brothers slept, the townspeople filled a wagon with hay and set 5 great watermelons between Jose and his brothers, in thanks for their aid. The wagon took the brothers back to their home, where they were laid in the glossy grass, still sleeping. When their father found them there, he asked them what they had done to deserve the great watermelons. "We just helped the townspeople with their harvest," the brothers said, which was true, and nothing more was said. Down in the town, 5 trucks came for the mountain of pumpkins, and the townspeople were given a grand sum of money for all of the fruit. "Ah, nothing is better than pumpkins," they said. Much of the money went toward a feast held around a bonfire made by the burning hill of vines. It was decided then that the rest of the pumpkin money would be spent to carve a statue of the 5 mysterious brothers who had made a mountain of pumpkins. It took all the next week for the townspeople to repair their roofs and their fences, and it took all of that week for Jose and his brothers and his father to eat their great gifts. The melons were so sweet that Jose and his family said, "Nothing is better than watermelons." "Be careful with the seeds," Jose's father said. "Our field grows pumpkins, not watermelon." So Jose's family filled a great bowl with seeds, and those seeds were forgotten until a day later, when the wind roused Jose's father at night. He feared that some of those watermelon seeds might be blown into their field. By moonlight, he carried the bowl to the edge of the field, and he tossed the seeds. The wind caught those seeds and carried them, and didn't let them loose until they fell like rain down on the town. The watermelon seeds slipped into straw roofs and settled into flower pots and sprinkled gardens and slid into the soil around the statue of Jose and his brothers. And that seemed to be the end of it. Do you think that will be the end of it? Do you think that the seeds will just settle in the town and then nothing else will happen? Or do you think the same thing will happen with the watermelon seeds that happened with the pumpkin seeds? That's your prediction. Maybe there will be another story of number 2. So when we end our story, we work on that retell. That retell talks about who was in the story. So who was the boy that they talked most about in this story? Jose. They also talked about his brother and his father and the townspeople. That was the who in this story. Where did this story happen? Well, it really happened in 2 different locations. One was Jose's farm. Let's take a look and see if we can find a picture of that farm. Jose's farm. Well, I keep finding the wrong one. Jose's farm shows a little bit of it. But then where was the other location? Where were the pumpkins growing that they weren't supposed to grow? In the town, exactly. And here was a picture of the town. So that was the where. And then when we talk about what happened in the story. First, Jose's family was growing pumpkins. Then they let pumpkin seeds fall in the town. After that, pumpkins started growing all over in the town. And then Jose and his brother came to help the town out. They harvested those pumpkins. After that, the townsfolk sold the pumpkins, gave Jose and his brother watermelons, and made a giant statue in town. Finally, Jose and his brothers who had eaten those watermelon seeds, who had eaten the watermelons, saved the seeds. Their father was worried the seeds would grow in his land, so he dumped them. When he dumped them, the seeds sprinkled back into the village. Who knows what will happen next? Thanks for enjoying the story, Pumpkin Town.